Hello, everybody, and welcome to chapter 6. Okay, so we're just going to jump straight in. This is chapter 6. It's called Teleology, which, Scott, you have written down as the study of causes. And I know we were speaking before we got on here, and I was like, what is teleology? What does that mean? What is it? What's the actual definition of it? And I was kind of thinking in my head, I kind of had teleology down as like, there's a certain purpose behind something. So like if the universe is evolving and there's some kind of underlying purpose, reason for the evolution of the whole dance of the cosmos. That's the way I understand teleology, but I think we're talking about the same thing, are we?
Yeah, so it's about purpose, goals, and the end or the cause that gets you there. And it's often used as a term of dismissal or even derision by the dominant paradigm towards theories that propose that let's say that there's a purpose to evolution, or that there's a purpose or a goal of physics or something like that. Seems impossible from the materialist worldview. If you are, believing that the visible domain is all that exists, then there can be nothing outside of that. There can be no souls existing, no intelligible domain where geometry exists. It's all physical. And so things that have a purpose are absurd, except for you.
Okay.
We all know that as an individual that we have our set of purpose. I'm hungry. I want to eat a banana. I will go to the store and get a banana. That is my goal. And so we somehow ignore the case of ourselves, because we all like humans definitely have goals and purposes, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But it's interesting how anything else would be verboten.
I got you. So let me just lay out for our listeners, right? The way you've put this chapter together is quite straightforward, because you've put together a number of topics and then you've outlined the standard worldview, which I suppose we could just claim is like the worldview you and I don't personally subscribe to. And then you've kind of laid out the alternative worldview, which is essentially the worldview that you and I completely adopt or sign up to, essentially. And we're going to bounce between this standard worldview and the alternative worldview, and under a variety of different headings. So that's the way you've laid it out. But before I jump into that, Scott, I was just going to ask you in terms of teleology, is it like, without being flippant, but you know the way sometimes people say, oh, well, everything happens for a reason. Is that along the lines of teleology? That would be a claim of
teleology. And that's often used in religion to say, well, Jesus has a plan for you, your life. And so you buy into that teleology if you buy into the religious construct there.
Gotcha.
And so I'm not advocating like a faith-based kind of buying into some kind of system of belief that gives you purpose, but rather I'm just trying to kind of stick to the theories that I've outlined in the earlier chapters here and try to unpack what that says about teleology. And so I've divided that into all these different categories, like what purpose is itself, the world, all these different things that we're going to talk about shortly. And the point is to compare and contrast them, to try to understand the differences between these theories that describe the world. And then you, the listener, can kind of figure out which one you resonate with more.
Yeah. And your claim is that the standard worldview is essentially it outlines the current understanding of reality under the paradigm we're educated into our mainstream systems of learning and cultural conditioning generally are the standard worldview in the way you've laid it out.
And a lot of times people aren't cognitive, they're not really cognitively aware of what that assumption is. But when they think it through, they go, I guess that is the assumption,
Yeah.
And I think, sometimes I find myself in the role of having to explain to you what the dominant paradigm is, and what the real belief is there. because you're so far down the road that you abandoned that long ago, or maybe never had that idea.
Yeah, well, it's funny actually, because, and I get the fun job. This will be kind of a role reversal, and I'm glad we get to explain this to people. So I'm going to kind of call out the standard worldview as you've outlined it. But just for all our viewers, if I make a mess of it, it's because I've never, ever been comfortable with like the materialistic worldview. And it's not even something like that, you know, I held when I was in school and as part of my education, and I moved away from it. Like literally when I was like a 6-year-old kid, I just felt this kind of interconnected feeling that like I was part of something much, much bigger. And anything that wasn't like in line with that just never made sense to me, you know? So it's kind of funny for me when I read the standard worldview, I go, what, really? Like, do people like, how could you believe that? You know, but it'll be fun because, you know, I'm going to call it out. So let's get started with the first heading is purpose. Okay. I'm going to read a little bit of this, Scott, because, you know, to make it easier for me, but just to kind of like lay out the standard worldview regarding purpose, you state only certain animal life forms have purpose, the ones which are conscious. Humans have aims, goals, designs, and explanations for many of the things that they do. Animals seem to share in having purposes, but we tend to draw the line at a lower threshold of nervous complexity, which can possibly support any form of intelligence. Perhaps a flatworm with a ganglion for a brain, or a shrimp might be the lower limit on consciousness, but the line is unclear. Plants, fungi, protists, bacteria, viruses, and single-celled organisms do not have purposes because they do not have brains. Therefore, it follows these types of life are unconscious and without purposes.
If I take it farther, purpose would be an illusion, because it's just a biological program that we're running. I think there's a lot of materialists that would buy into that. But let me just read the alternative worldview. By virtue of consciousness being the absolute ground of being, all minds which modulate awareness naturally have their own purposes, aims, goals, and reasons appropriate to themselves. Purpose arises in every sub-mind's relationship to awareness and to other minds in its own quest to try to comprehend its identity and experience. Far from being a rare or possibly illusory phenomenon, purpose is embedded at every relative level of the intelligible, visible, and invisible domains, in every mind and dissociative submind. Minds inherently have purpose. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, like, I mean, it kind of does, you know, but I'd love to sort of thicken the plot a bit here with you. So like, I was kind of thinking, you know, the question, like, why are we here? Like, what's it all about? Like, what's going on? Why is the universe even here? I often ask myself these questions. And I remember, I love the guy, Richard Tarnas. You know, I'm a big fan of his book, and he wrote Passion of the Western Mind and Psyche and Cosmos. But in the end, at the end of Passion of the Western Mind, it's a great book. If you haven't read it, I couldn't recommend. It's been my all-time top 3 of my favorite 100 books ever. I'd recommend it. But he made this point, which I loved, was that the whole reason we're here is so that consciousness can become aware of itself, right? And I think a sidebar to that is that, you know, the idea in Kabbalah is that like, when there's only the absolute, it's like consciousness is kind of bored just being completely whole and unified, and it wants this separation so that it can see itself or something like that.
Yeah, you know, I want to counter that with something like Rupert Spira gave an analogy, I remember, where like we kind of make too much out of our human consciousness, and it goes along with materialism, really, to think that we're the only intelligent life in the universe. That we know of. And his analogy was like, consciousness is like the sun, and it like, does the sun need the light of a single candle to know itself? No,
not really.
It doesn't at all.
Not at all.
No, I mean, it already knows itself, and humanity is just one little candle. amongst all that is conscious. And so
Yeah.
we have this incredible hubris that's kind of built on our dominant paradigm of thinking that the world is only the visible. So therefore we must be really, we're the kings. You know,
For
we're the best.
One small species on like one rock around one pretty small sun in a billion suns in one galaxy. But I the way I read Tarnus's example wasn't that, because I know that's very kind of like human centric. It's very, very like a bit arrogant. And I think what he was saying was like, no, that the entire dance of creation is consciousness viewing itself. So he would include like all galaxies, all kind of cosmic, anything material, like out to the cosmic scale, is the universe kind of like looking back at itself somehow, you know?
Yeah,
And
yeah. I mean,
there's
it
a
is kind of
purpose.
the whole aspect of the relative is sort of like playing around with finite creations. Infinity is playing around with temporary finite limitation.
Yeah,
and
something
having
like
fun
that.
with it, you know, like,
Yeah,
what is this, you know, like this will be interesting. I'll make a universe,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
and then I'll make it so interesting that I'll get lost in it. It's sort of, I
yeah,
like the analogy of a video game where you're playing this video game and you become that character, you know.
yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah,
like a suspension of disbelief. It's like when you sit down in a movie, you believe you're witnessing these things,
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
you allow yourself to get stuck in to that drama. And
Mm-hmm,
that's what
mm-hmm.
consciousness does when it has invented the world and the visible realm and all this complexity. It gets lost in that, and that happens whenever consciousness goes inside of a boundary, which is a
Mm-hmm,
mind. So whenever you have
mm-hmm.
a mind, you have a new point of view and you have
Yeah,
a new purpose, because each mind's relationship to all the other minds is unique.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And so you
exactly.
have your own unique purpose, first of all, to figure out what's the meaning of this existence.
Mm-hmm,
And then what is your relationship with all the other minds? Where do you fit?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
What does it all mean? And this is everybody's quest at every
mm-hmm.
level.
Yeah.
Even the galaxy is trying to figure out, wait a minute,
What am I doing
I'm
here?
just this galaxy. I see all these other ones
Yeah,
out there. What's my
yeah.
relationship to all the other galaxies? And
Yeah,
what are all these solar systems inside of me? What is this about? You know?
yeah,
And so we're all faced with that. Even on the human level, we're like, what are all these voices that I have and these impulses that I have that sometimes contradict each other, you know?
yeah, yeah.
And what is my relationship with all the other people around me?
Mm-hmm,
And so
mm-hmm,
it's the same kind of drama that you got stuck into as awareness. But every level has a purpose.
mm-hmm,
Everybody's trying to figure it out. Everybody has goals, you know,
mm-hmm,
of things they want to do.
mm-hmm.
And I would say the only place that doesn't have teleology is awareness, because it doesn't need a purpose. It's beyond,
Is the absolute.
is the absolute. Exactly.
Yeah, because the irony is, well, I was just thinking of a funny quote just there on your view about like the universe has created all these forms, or the absolute has created the relative so that it can almost see itself or create an infinite kind of array of like manifestations. But then there's a funny term that like an atheist then is kind of like the extreme form of like the creator playing hide and seek with herself. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
it's kind of like
it's
the ultimate embedded avatar. Like you
yeah,
really
yeah,
believe
yeah,
you're that character, and you really, no one can
yeah,
dissuade you from believing that you're that character.
yeah, yeah,
And that's
yeah.
kind of the goal, in a way of kind of it reminds me of the Sri Yantra in like in involution or evolution. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like, I think that would be the end of evolution, of going into manifestation as far as possible and really
Mm-hmm.
believing that you're there. And you can even have a sense of being trapped, kind of like a Gnostic trap or prison of the body, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And we feel
Mm-hmm.
that separation all the time
Mm-hmm.
when we feel alone.
Mm-hmm.
And a very common thing to feel depressed because you're so alone.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to, it's just a perceptual shift to realize that you never were alone. and that the person, the avatar that you take yourself to be is really just one level in this big drama. There's other ways of looking at it where everything is connected. It's like islands sticking out of the ocean, or like they're so separate, and there's no ferry, there's no boat that goes between them, but actually underneath the water they're all connected. You know.
I get you. It's like, also, isn't there an irony as well, like trying to work all this stuff out? And there's this idea that, like, you know, Geoff Fitzpatrick is this boundaried entity, you know, that I have a certain limitation on what's me and what's not me, you know. So like I have my sort of my physiological self, which is my body. Then I have my social self, which is my circle of friends, you know, and everything that's kind of like outside my body is not me, or everything that's outside my social network is not me, you know, and everything that's inside it, you know, some people call it the circle of empathy or whatever. This is me and this is not me. But that goes at every scale. That goes for like the solar system, the cosmos, or the galaxy, and the cosmos actually. And that ultimately the sort of the celestial nostalgia, they call it, you know, that we feel disconnected from the source, which from whence we've came or whatever, and we long for that kind of like union, back becoming one with all that is. And actually that only happens when our boundaries dissolve, and so we can never know it by being something. We have to become nothing in order to experience that.
Or you have to stop being Geoff. You have to transcend Geoff Fitzpatrick and become all of humanity, for example, and go into the collective unconscious, as Jung called it, of where we have a collective human soul, and you go there every night when you dream. And you can go there in altered states, and you can find that's a real landscape that people can go and visit and report back and like say, oh, I was there in that place, you know.
So, well, let's keep going, will we? Let's keep reading out the points of view of our self-appointed upholders of the status quo, we could call them, couldn't we, for the standard worldview. So then regarding the world, then, this is quite short, this one. The entire universe is utterly devoid of purpose, except to animals with complex brains. The laws of physics, chemistry, and biology have absolutely no purpose or theology. I think we've kind of done this one, actually, have we?
Well, this is kind of the kind of belief in the sciences that you know, physics, chemistry, biology have no teleology. There's nothing there. But let me just give you another take on that. The world has purpose precisely because it is minded. Remember, the world is full of recursive subminds brimming with purposes. Although competition has a role, cooperation is the rule amongst world minds. Take biological cells for an example. Single-celled organisms may compete for limited food sources, while multicellular life requires massive cellular cooperation for the larger organism to survive. Minds at cross purposes, for example, those in competition, typically serve higher evolutionary purposes. So I'm just proposing that purpose isn't just relegated to certain neural structures and certain brains on one planet in one galaxy in the universe, but rather it's written throughout the entire universe itself. And we can kind of get to that a little bit with the idea of fine-tuning that we're going to talk about in the next chapter when we do another video. But we're really on the knife edge here to have this conversation. There's so many different physics parameters had to be tuned perfectly for a universe to exist at all, and one that supports atoms, one that has all of the factors necessary to have complex life. So in order to do that, you sort of have to have intelligence guiding every step of the way to create such an outcome. And that makes sense in this worldview because every world mind has a purpose. And I think that it's going to select for more interesting, complex outcomes naturally than just getting a null case. You see, like if your role is to like govern the solar fusion reactions in the sun, you're going to tune all the variables so that it continues as well as it can, and not just collapse and not be able to form a sun at all. Because it's more interesting, it's more full to have that type of experience. And so I'm advocating that purpose isn't just in the brain of a human being, but it's actually written throughout the universe. Because it's all minded.
Gotcha. And I kind of feel totally at home with that. And it would be weird for me to think that, you know, everything at all scales doesn't have a purpose, you know, that is like, there's a whole cosmic dance going on way above my pay grade. But there's some kind of like meaning, purpose, outcome, you know, in this whole cosmic unfolding since the Big Bang. There's stuff going on at scales that I have no idea about, but that just feels more likely to be the case than not from where I'm coming from. Actually, you know what, can we sidebar here a bit, Scott, you know, because I was thinking about this chapter before we got on, right? And I was just thinking about that very thing, is like, I just subscribe, and I know you just subscribe to the universe being a particular way, you know, so that even this model that we're going to so much, you know, effort to present to everybody, and our passion for the absolute and the relative and world mind and soul mind, and the fact that you and I just feel that way, we're built that way, right? And I was going like, isn't it interesting that you and I feel that way? And let's compare ourselves to somebody that doesn't feel that way, right? Like I was thinking, let's pick people that I really like, right? So it's not even, they have a different worldview, but I sort of dig the way they do things. So there's one guy, Darren Brown. There's another guy, who's the physicist? You mentioned him later in the chapter. I really like him, Neil deGrasse Tyson. You know that guy?
Sure.
And he would be kind of, if I understand him right, quite a materialist. But do you know Darren Brown? He's like this kind of English magician guy. He's a mentalist.
I don't know of him. No.
Okay, but he's absolutely impeccable, and I've read his books and I've gone to his shows. He does shows where like, you are the miracle, you know, and he basically says there is no magic here, you know, there's nothing going on, there's no mystery, like this can all be explained, right? But the complexity of what you need to explain is so fantastic that like, I will blow your mind with fact alone, if you like, you know.
Well, I get into some of those improbable facts in, I think it's chapter 7, about just how crazy improbable that is. And I think there is a magic there. There is something that a great mystery that's hard to explain when you resort to materialist explanations.
And me too. I totally feel that as well. But it's almost boils down, I think, to a feeling. You know, ultimately, like Darren Brown and Neil deGrasse Tyson, they're as fascinated with the universe as you and I are, actually. And to be honest, the more deeper down the rabbit hole you go, whether you go all the way out or all the way in, you have more and more in common, actually, all the way along. And the little bit you disagree with at the end, it kind of becomes less of a big deal, you know?
Well, it's like, I see those guys as like really detailing the visible world in a very valuable way. They've gone so deeply into the study of science that they're learning a lot from that. But what I'm proposing that there's more to reality than that. And I'm not discounting anything that they're saying. I think it's fantastic what they're saying and very great. But I'm saying that there may be more to the whole totality of existence than atoms.
I agree. Yeah. And I think it's a nice thing to call out at this stage as well, you know, because I listened to Neil deGrasse Tyson. He does this thing on the Tesseract, you know, and he speaks about it from a mathematical point of view. And like, he's one of the best ambassadors for fourth dimensional reality, and what a mind blower it is. And he's as enthusiastic about it as you or I are, you know. And then he kind of says, oh, but look, there's no mystery, there's no magic, go back to sleep, America. I'm kind of I'm being a little bit disingenuous there, or being a bit flippant, but he's able to raise the magic. And then we just diverge. It's kind of like, oh, wow, you think there's no mystery. That's cool. It's like, you're fascinated with the Tesseract and you think there's no mystery. I'm fascinated with the Tesseract and I think there's huge mystery.
I feel like just evaluate the idea that if there was no mystery, that it was all known.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't that really make you want to kill yourself? I mean, that's horrible. Like, we know it all. There's nothing that we don't know.
Yeah,
That's this crazy talk.
Well, they
there's
don't
so
say
much
that. They say that there's stuff we don't know. They do admit that. Like, there is stuff we don't know. Like, there's the hard problem, you know.
Okay.
But they say, just bear with us, because like once our equipment and machinery and our ways of knowing stuff catches up, we will be able to know the stuff we don't know.
Yeah,
you know. But
there's always that promissory note, like, well,
yeah,
we've been studying human memory for like 50 years in the lab, and we don't really know how it works, but we think that we will, like, in another, I don't know, 1,000 years,
indefinite amount of time. Yeah, exactly. That's the Richard Dawkins vibe. But anyway, let's keep going. Okay, so I think we did the world there. We made that point. Let's look at life then. Yes. So life, what are you saying here? So from your outlaying of the standard worldview, you mentioned a Russian geneticist who reviewed 123 definitions of life. And after linguistic analysis, all the definitions agreed on one thing: life is self-reproduction with variations. Of course, the unexamined assumption is that this definition applies only to biological life observed in the physical world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is what we normally take life to be.
Yeah. Okay.
But what I'm saying is that definition is correct. Life is self-reproduction with variations, but it also aptly describes the nature of mind. Minds fit that definition, from universal mind down through all recursive dissociations. Each mind reproduces itself inside new dissociative boundaries, which inform each new self, which will necessarily be varied in relationship to all other minds. Do you see that? When you make a new mind inside it, like draw a circle, when you have a new circle inside of that, that's a new boundary, a new mind. And it has a different relationship to the complexity of all the circles on the page, because it now is related to everything in a different way. It has a different holarchic or hierarchic relationship or peer relationship with everything.
Could we move into an example or two here, Scott, just to help me out? So when you say, like, think of one mind, could we think of, like, say, the mind of the Milky Way? Would that be a good one?
Or
and
let's
then could we think of the mile of the solar system?
Let's keep it closer to home. So, like, when you and your wife have your first daughter,
yeah,
that daughter has her own soul. She's a unique mind.
Yes.
And it's because she is consciousness just like you are, but she has different limitations than you. She's growing up in a different time of history. She has you as parents. And so she is a unique individual, and we know that. Obviously, that's how it is. But that's also the case with the world mind, or with the soul mind, with different levels. And you were saying what, the galaxy or the solar system? Yeah. So it has dissociative boundaries within it. Like the sun has planets going around it that presumably have their own characters, and there's for Earth, there's a theory called the Gaia hypothesis that was proposed decades ago. The idea is that the Earth is self-regulating to support life. So it like releases more CO2 from the permafrost when it needs it, or it does certain mechanisms to keep the whole biosphere, on the razor's edge to support complex biological life. And because that's a more interesting outcome, and of course humans are pushing that with pollution, and we're really challenging that system. But it's remarkable that it's supported life for billions of years.
It's incredible. And I mean, it is incredible.
it's a tragedy.
Yeah, and
We're trying our level best to like ruin that.
yeah, I think I'm not sure if I'm right about this. I read that book. It was by a guy called James Lovelock, you know, the Gaia hypothesis, you know, and it was really popular when I was traveling and stuff. And it was very comforting, you know, because it kind of gave me the feeling, oh my God, like the world is okay. The planet knows what it's doing. It's regulating the oxygen levels. It's got like these complex ways of sustaining life. It's hubris for us to think that we could change climate change. But now I believe that that guy, James Lovelock, has said, oh my God, forget about everything that I said. This train wreck is coming and it's so big. I like, please, nobody read that book. It's complete trash. You know, he's one of the biggest kind of bringers of doom. And like, he's, you know, I don't know, maybe, forgive me if I'm wrong, Mr. James Lovelock, but a friend of mine was telling me that he's completely U-turned and he's now one of the sort of the most, I would say, negative proponents of just how bad the planet is.
Humans might very well change the biosphere enough so that we can't survive, but that doesn't mean that life won't continue on this planet, you see.
Of course.
So
yeah
the Gaia hypothesis still holds if we're not so you know, anthropocentric about like human life being
yeah.
I don't think that the Gaia hypothesis was about human life.
Okay.
I think
and then
it was
the freaky
about
thing
life,
is,
you know.
The freaky thing is we're the problem, and then the planet is working out a way to ship us off. Then you could argue, is that the Gaia hypothesis? You know, I hope not, by the way. And I'm totally like, let's do everything we can to stay alive. And, you know, but, you know, it would fit in, wouldn't it? With like, you know, the planet sustaining life by shipping a life form off that's like, you know, not helpful for it or not sustaining life, you know, possibly. Who knows? Pretty dark thought. Anyway, so okay, I think will we keep going? Will we move on to evolution? Is the next one?
I think. Well, before we do, I just want to say that life is more than human life. It's the whole, all life, and so I'm trying to show that everything is alive and conscious, not just a few animals on planet Earth in some random solar system of a single galaxy. That everything is alive, and so to be so fixated on the one species that we are in, that we are humans, is kind of missing the bigger point of what's alive. And I think the dominant worldview is informing our beliefs. So like without self-reflection, we just assume that human life is, well, we prioritize it, and that's natural. But I'm proposing radically expanding the definition of life to encompass all self-reproduction with variations, and not just saying it's animal life, and really just human life is important, is what we
understood.
Yeah. I don't know. Does it, I don't want to get people mad at me for feeling like, well, I don't respect human life. Of course I do.
Yeah, of course.
What I'm saying is life is bigger than that. Life is so much bigger than that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm like, I am really worried about climate change, and I'm totally a subscriber to, we need some serious radical action right now to correct our course at the very least, you know. And I'm no expert in that field. There's people that are way further out front of that mission, but I'm trying to sort of educate myself and do anything I can, you know, to sort of take part in that, you know what I mean? Yeah. But so just if there was any misinterpretation there that we're like, oh, the planet will be grand without humans, it's not what we're saying at all. It's like, I do think humans have an important role, you know, and we need to sustain our
I'm enjoying the human experience. I hope it keeps going for a long time.
Yeah, me too.
But we also know that the human experience is somewhat limited. It's been around, I don't know, 300,000 years. You know that life has been around more than 4 billion years on this planet. Human life is only going to last a little while, and then there'll be something else.
Yeah.
And that's not the ultimate tragedy, because it's your consciousness, and you're going to be in those you're going to be floating the boat of all of that new life that's coming later.
Yeah. I
know?
get it. I
So,
get that.
yeah.
I get that completely. Yeah, it's like, you know, it's a lovely idea to think about. I believe like some of the first life forms to appear on the surface of the planet were actually flowers, I believe. I remember hearing in Keith Critchlow's book, it's like flowers go back 200,000 years, I think. Is it? Or more?
Oh, millions of years, Geoff.
Millions of years,
Yeah.
is it?
Oh, yeah. I don't know the number, but it's certainly millions, if not billions. I don't know
Is
exactly,
it?
but I mean, human life, Homo
But
sapiens have been around 200,000 to 300,000 years. And
okay,
that's it. I mean, as a species, but
200,000 to 300,000
flowering
years.
plants have been around for millions of years.
Oh,
way,
have they?
way
Okay,
longer.
sorry, okay, forgive my ignorance. Yeah, but like, hang on a sec. So just off topic, just to correct my history here. So like us as a human species, do you mean like Cro-Magnon man and, you know, the different variations of the early primates and all that kind of crack is 300 years or 300,000 years old?
No,
But I thought
just the Homo sapiens, who our current species.
us,
Our current species.
like, yeah, is that 300,000?
Yeah, at the outer
Okay.
limit, as far as I last checked.
Okay, yeah.
I think that we've been anatomically modern for about
Yeah.
3,000 years, which means we have the same kinds of bodies, the same capacities that we have today.
Yeah, like these brains, this version of the human, like not our chimpanzee ancestors.
Yeah, we're not talking about Cro-Magnon or whatever like that.
Okay.
That's earlier. But
wow.
You know, we've had this capacities, and that actually raises a very important point that's sort of outside of this chapter, which is that we think that we've only had recorded history for like at most 6,000 years, you know, but how do you reconcile that with the fact that we've had these same bodies for maybe 300,000 years? What were we doing for that most of our time as a species, just sitting around in a cave? Like, I don't buy it. I think that we had all kinds of civilizations that have come and gone and we've forgotten it. And it's probably because of a global cataclysm that happened periodically. And I know Randall Carlson has a really interesting theory about these kind of periodic cometary impacts on Earth that kind of are planetary scale, and that the last one happened, I think it was 12,700 years ago, something like that.
Yeah,
that kind of resets us back, even if we were very civilized, kind of resets us back to a Neolithic state.
I hear you. Yeah. I got to Wikipedia my, you know, ancient history and brush up. I had in my head, if I was on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and it was like, how many thousand years have humans in this form existed? I was coming in at like 50,000 years, I think, you know, so I need to upgrade my.
Well, the boundary has been pushed back. I think in our lifetimes, it was 50,000 maybe. And I remember it went back to 200,000, and then they find more bones, and then they go, oh, we were like, these are anatomically modern humans, and it goes back as far as maybe 300,000 years. But let's just be conservative and say it's only 200,000 years. Okay.
Yeah.
So what were we doing for like 195,000 years?
I know, and just this last 6,000 years, like that, and that brings us back to like Newgrange and Stonehenge and the pyramids, and like that's going back as far as we can. Allegedly, like I'm open.
Well, like they pushed it back. They found Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, and they're like, oh, this is like stone architecture. It's, I don't know, I think it's 1,000 years old, and it's like, and
it's pretty irrefutable. Like, I mean,
thousands of years earlier than we thought that people had been able to organize together into like, so that could actually build something like of that scale.
And that Göbekli Tepe thing, like, I totally believe in that. I'm kind of like, and then it's kind of like funny to kind of go, oh no, it only goes back 6,000 years, Geoff, you know, like, cut your nonsense. And then it's like, oh, except for Göbekli Tepe, which is double that age, you know, it's like, that's 11,000 years.
But nobody seems to raise the point, like, what were we doing for 190,000 years with these same bodies and these same capacities? 190,000 years. We don't.
It's a long time.
We're gonna just forget that stuff.
Anyway, look, let's get over the numbers here. What I was trying to say was we were speaking about life, right? And we were just trying to make the point that, like, you know, life beyond human life, you know, is you know, has existed millions of years. It's when flowers pop up on the planet. You're saying it's millions of years beforehand. I just like the idea of like this natural flourishing of vegetation and plants. I'm looking at beautiful ferns that have unfurled here.
Ferns
like,
were some of the first plants. They're really ancient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would have said hundreds of thousands of years, but you're saying like
I'd have to Google it.
millions and
I don't know
millions.
offhand.
But
The age.
way before human life. That was the point I sort of made, but I tripped myself up with the numbers. But the principle of the point is valid, because it's like that life came long before there was any human appearance, you know, that was flourishing on the planet. And I can totally relate to the life force that brings a daisy out of the ground. It's completely life. I think everybody can understand that.
Yeah.
You know,
but I'm going farther than that. I'm saying that the daisy is alive, but so is the earth. You know, because it's a mind. It's alive. It's conscious. It's self-regulating. It is, and of course, scientists will you know, flip out when I say that, because they say, well, there's no evidence of that in the world, in things that we can weigh and measure. But and they can't explain the utter improbability of all of these things happening the way that they have happened.
I'm with you.
When I see that improbability, that fine tuning, it's a sign that there's some kind of regulation going on, some kind of conscious guidance going on there. You know,
it's going to be my favorite chapter, by the way. The fine tuning is like, I mean, it's just like the most exhilarating part of this whole journey with sacred geometry, I have to say.
You like that one? Yeah.
Oh yeah, I love it. So I'm looking forward to that. But let's keep on track here, right? Because I'm just trying to, just to give people, we're going to talk about evolution, we're going to talk about meaning, we're going to talk about synchronicity, which is a great one. We're going to talk about consciousness itself, the multiverse, the universe as a simulation. So we have a few to do. We can keep rolling here. So
maybe
evolution.
We won't read the thing so much. Rather than kind
let's
of
say like
so we all know what evolution is with Darwin and the theory of evolution.
It's like survival of the fittest. Isn't that what we were taught in school? You know?
And it's genetic mutation arising solely by chance, with mutations conferring advantage conserved by natural selection. So there's no teleology needed, right? But what's fascinating to me in that is that biologists almost cannot teach the study of evolution without teleology. And J.B.S. Haldane said he's the most erudite biologist of his generation, and he died in 1964. He said, teleology is like a mistress to a biologist. He cannot live without her, but he's unwilling to be seen with her in public. You see, so biologists think of evolution as having purposes, as going somewhere, as having a plan, but they can't say that. And they kind of go to pains to try to describe things without that, and they kind of falter because it doesn't really make sense as a narrative without that. And so they just say, well, I'm going to explain it to you this way just so that you understand, but it's not really how it happens. There's no purpose. What I'm saying is, like, structures like eyes evolve for the purpose of seeing. Okay.
Yes.
Because there's not minds, there's minds at many levels behind all of that, guiding that. I have no problem with that. Evolution is irreducibly teleological because it's guided by minds. And that's like heresy to science, you know.
Gotcha.
But then I was reading this book, The Zoologist's Guide to the Galaxy, published in 2021. And the author says there are mathematical rules that govern the way evolution works. So why would there be mathematical rules governing chance, governing purposeless mutation? That's a question. I think the answer is that math is underlying everything. and that evolution is following this math because that's what's guiding the entire universe. That is the language of consciousness. It is evolving in a kind of, it's a dance. Evolution is a dance between the soul minds and the world mind and the compromises that are made between them. There's a dance between involution and evolution. Involution is a process by which world minds drive soul minds to adapt to changing conditions, resulting in adaptation in soul minds. Evolution is the opposite process. So it's the process by which soul minds drive world minds to adapt to changing conditions, resulting in structural changes in world minds. So it's this kind of interplay between body and soul that drives change. And so evolution is just one half of the street, and involution is the other, in my view. And it's this, this complex interwoven tapestry of body and soul that manifests, you know, the way that things happen in the world and in biology. And I think when we reduce it just to studying the world, we lose a lot of that beauty, and a lot of the we have to cut purpose out of it, for example. When I think that there are purposes, things seem to happen in a way that supports greater complexity, and it doesn't always work out. Sometimes, like we might succeed in killing off our species with pollution, and we might do that if we're not smart enough to stop that. And I don't know that we are. I hope we are, but if you look at the evolution of life, every branch of the tree doesn't always become the main trunk. Sometimes it just branches off, and that's it, folks. And the main trunk just keeps going in a different direction. You know?
Scott, I hope
that humanity continues on the main trunk, but complicated to say, you know.
World and soul are co-equal dance partners, simultaneously driving evolution and involution. So am I correct in understanding that, in terms of, you just see evolution as going both ways? So we can kind of see evolution in the material realm, from the Big Bang outward into, you know, like all the planets, the solar systems, the galaxies, the humans that have shown up, and all of that good stuff. Yeah, that's kind of the story of evolution as we know it. But are you also making a point that, like, the material world actually informs a similar evolution inwardly into the invisible realms of soul? Is that what you're saying there, by co-equal dance partners?
I'm saying that the world mind changes over time, right? But it doesn't change all by itself. There's an interplay of soul at every level in those changes that happen. And those changes that happen affect the souls and cause them to adapt. And so it's hard to say who's responsible for what, because in the end, it's a co-creation. Okay.
I get it. That's an important point. Yeah, I get it.
In your human life, in your body has a certain it's the world mind, right? Your body, it's obviously developed over time, but the way that your soul has inhabited that body and the choices that you've made have put the mileage on that body, you know? If you've been out drinking a whole lot, then it's going to affect your body in some way, you know? And you're going to have more mileage on that thing. Maybe you're not going to live as long as you could have otherwise. So, you know, and so then that, it's kind of it's hard to tease apart and say there's only one thing. And I think that our tendency is to look for concrete answers, but that's kind of a child's point of view. More complicated view has shades of gray, and it has complexity, and it thrives in ambiguity. And it's not as simple as that, you know. In coming up with the way everything has happened. I think we're very arrogant as a species to presume that we know how everything evolves.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
we've only been around for 300,000 years, and we only think we've really been around for 5,000 years. And yet we seem to know how everything happened for like billions of years. And
Yeah,
I mean, it's
yeah,
fascinating that we're able to speculate about all of that, but
yeah.
I'm not
Eckhart
that
Tolle makes a
confident that we
joke
know it.
about that.
Sorry?
Eckhart Tolle makes a joke about that, so like the universe has been evolving 13 point something billion years? Are my numbers right there?
13.7, yeah.
Planet Earth, 4 point something billion, is it?
Yeah, 4
And
points.
there's all that level of complexity, that whole dance of helium and hydrogen and blah, 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 and the stars and everything being made. And then he says this species shows up at the last minute and thinks it can explain that complexity through words, and then he makes it how words are basically sounded. It's that it's essentially like, I think the vowels are just like a, e, u, a, like these little
Emotions. Vowels are
utterances.
like emotions,
Yeah, and then the consonants are just air pressure. It's like yeah, we can explain the entire complexity of the cosmic dance through these 5 like vowels and some sort of weird air pressure that makes these noises. You know what I mean? And that we can, I just love that he jokes about it, that we have that level of sort of, we've such a high opinion of ourselves that we think that's it, we have it sorted,
And also remember
kind
that
of a mocking joke he makes.
humans kind of explain it, and I'm a human, I'm trying to explain it to the
Yeah.
satisfaction of your monkey mind.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm having a hard time.
I'm having a hard time explaining
it.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's do me. Oh, by the way, before we jump into meaning, just on that one, I'm having a hard time understanding it. You're having a hard time explaining it. This does get us back to that important point that, like, ultimately, when you go deep into, beyond the thinking mind, and you get to experience an aspect of yourself that kind of touches the further reaches of like where the seat of your soul is, or you become aware of being aware, and you get to actually just be in that, it's the experience of that changes everything, isn't it? Like 1 nanosecond actually of any viewer or listener here experiencing that will, 1, put everything we're trying to explain into context, where you'll just go, I get it, and we could go on making videos like this for years and it won't come close to the experience of that place that you can have. I think it's an important point.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's kind of, it's like, imagine that you've embedded yourself in this video game and you really believe you're that player in the video game. And then for a second, you kind of just reflect on being aware. And then for a moment, you might realize that you're just a player in this game.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like looping back towards where you came from and saying,
yeah,
I'm actually outside of this game as well as in the game.
We almost, if the player from the game got teleported out in some magic way and became a fly on the wall behind a person playing the game and got a momentary glimpse of, wait, what? Who's this dude? And that's me on the screen that they're playing. It's that kind of glimpse you get.
I thought I was this like ninja with all these cool weapons and attributes. And wait, I'm this guy on the sofa? What?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. All right. So we're going to do meaning next then, right? So where are we at here? Let me read out our standard worldview on meaning, which is a big question. I mean, this is an important one for me personally. Like I'm driven a lot by the what's it all about question.
For me, obviously writing this book is all about the search for meaning. So it's kind of a primary human motivating drive to find
big
meaning.
Time.
And so in the standard worldview, it's like a lot of these things, religion, ethics, aesthetics, morality, arise from ascribing meaning. But we know that these are relative pursuits to each culture that we're in. So one culture will have a certain kind of ethics and aesthetics, a different one will have a different take on that. And so some of us look to religion or even conspiracy theory to ascribe meaning to events that occur. And so in the standard worldview, I guess I'm switching roles with you here, Geoff, on this one.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, totally.
In the standard worldview, you have to bring your own meaning to the party, because meaning is not found in physics, chemistry, biology, or evolution, present company accepted. So you're if that's how you think of meaning, well, more power to you. That's your own take on it. I have a different, and we recognize that, because we meet a person who believes the meaning is somehow all religious, and they ascribe everything within the framework of their religion, and that's totally their business, their prerogative. Fantastic for them. And then another person says, oh, there is no meaning. I find meaning only in myself. I'm a narcissist, and I want more power for myself and everything. Well, I don't know about that. That doesn't sound so healthy, but okay, that's your business, sir. And so everybody has a different take on this, don't they?
Yeah, they do. And by the way, I was really curious about you choosing a Joseph Campbell quote, which is kind of funny, because Joseph Campbell is this celebrated hero of mine, in my training with Stan Groff. He'd be a massive champion of Joseph Campbell. He's informed Star Wars. He's like the ultimate mythologist. So he'd always be kind of a champion of the worldview that I subscribe to. I just found it interesting that you had a quote of his on the other side of the fence, where
kind of reveals his, I don't know if it's his choice or just his, like many people are sort of unconscious acceptance of the dominant paradigm.
Where can I read that quote out? It's like, life has no meaning. Each of us has meaning, and we bring it to life. Each of us has meaning, and we bring it to life. It's a waste to be asking the question when you are the answer. So I know, like on the hero's journey, it's like, I don't know. I wonder. I'm not. That quote struck me actually.
Well, maybe that quote works in both sides of the street, because when you think of the hero's journey, let's take
the call to adventure.
Let's take Luke Skywalker. His call to adventure. He's got to figure out his role and in the universe, in that galaxy far, far away, and what he's going to do there. And he goes on a quest, and he finds his meaning through his actions. He goes on a hero's journey, and each of us does that in our own way. So what I'm saying is that meaning motivates us all. It's probably the most core human drive to figure out what your purpose is in life, what your expression of your life will be, what will your legacy be at the end of your life. What does it all mean? And that is a quest that is individualized, because it's your relationship to the whole. And attempting to understand that is your own prerogative. It's your own journey. But I guess what I say here in the alternative worldview is that trying to understand visible minds in the world is the path of science. That's what motivates scientists, is to find meaning in the world, whether they admit it or not. I mean, I don't think they would like to really admit it, but that's what might drive a scientist to study like fruit flies or whatever it is. To find how it works, because that says something beautiful about the meaning of the world, And if you're trying to understand the invisible aspects, let's say you're a mystic and you're introspecting and you're meditating and you're going inward, that is the path of the mystic, and you're finding meaning within. And what you're doing is you're going into the soul. You're exploring the soul side of the street, and you're finding meaning in the beauty there, and in the truth and the goodness there. Okay, but they're both just seeking meaning in different realms, one in the visible, one in the invisible. And they're both, it seems to me, equally valid human pursuits, and natural to look for that meaning either outside of you or inside of you.
You bet. Wow. Yeah. I mean, I even lean personally, my temperament tips me inward in like the scales on that one for me in terms of looking for meaning is like, if this is going in, it's all it. I mean, it's like going in outweighs going
So
out.
you're
for
more
me
of,
completely.
on your case, you're more of a mystic than a scientist.
Yeah,
I
way
think
more,
you'd
way more.
You'd admit that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel more like I want to balance those. I do enjoy looking out in the world and looking at science.
Yeah.
I really do, looking for beauty in the world. And I also enjoy it on going inward and exploring that.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. For me, it might be more equal or a little bit more on the science side even.
Yeah, and it's a nice metaphor to kind of give our viewers here as well, because ultimately everyone has to sort of like weigh those scales for themselves, you know. Like obviously we're all a blend of these things, you know. You're not just external, you know. You're as you say, you're 50-50 maybe. I'm probably 80-20. Like obviously I'm, you know, when I get on to fine tuning, like in a weird way, it encouraged me to go inward even more, because the mystery is getting more and more rich. When you discover these cool things happening that bind the universe together, you're going, whoa, if that's going on, I want to feel and experience it even more. Okay, so am I skipping over something here before synchronicity? I want to give you a chance, because there's a nice tetractys which feels wrong to skip over.
I actually have an appointment I have to go to in just a few minutes, so I'm going to want to cut this short. Maybe we can just close out of meaning and revisit some of the other topics in another
video. It's going to be a second video. It is, Scott. I think this was
for meaning. I just want to not leave that yet and just complete that, because meaning is a self it's a journey that you have to go on your own, and can't ever be completely spelled out in language. It can't be made concrete so that Luke Skywalker has found the meaning in life, and that's got to be the meaning for you. No, that's Luke's meaning, you know, for his life. But Anakin had a different, you know, his father had a different trajectory in his life, and his meaning might have been a different one, you know? And so you can't codify meaning and make it a law, because it only is good for a little while until people reject that. Like David Hume was a philosopher in the 18th century who said, all of our reasonings concerning matters of fact are founded on a species of analogy. So to understand anything, it's always some analogy. And an analogy is like comparing things.
This is like that.
And so to find that meaning, you have to compare things, experiences that you've had on your path. You have to figure that out on your own.
You have to weigh your own scales. I love that, Scott. I mean, that's core to everything we do in terms of how we present our work, isn't it? It's absolutely not a case of, and thank God for everyone, it's not Scott and Geoff telling you, you know, what meaning is. All we're doing is inviting you to embark upon the worthwhile journey of playing around with the principle of finding out what is meaningful for you. It's going to be different for everybody, but the pursuit of it is very worthwhile. It's essentially where we're coming from, isn't it? It's an important thing to state.
I'm sorry. I'm just saying.
No, go ahead.
Concluding that meaning can only ever be understood by absolute consciousness, because consciousness is the meaning all its relative modulations are seeking and ultimately made of. So you're undertaking this hero's journey in the finite to try to find the infinite.
And
you're doing it from your own point of view, from your unique position in the whole complexity of all that is. We're trying to find your way out to the absolute. And that would be meaningful, because that's what it's all about, is self-realization. Who are you really? And it's that hero's journey. You become a hero when you figure out who you are. And that's going to be different for everyone. And so this is a super important, this is like my favorite drive, meaning, because we have it all in common, and we should celebrate the diversity of what people, how they find meaning.
Yes. Yeah. And actually, in terms of values around what you and I are doing, this is huge for both of us. I mean, I think this is probably one of the core values that's brought us together as friends and has given us this shared journey, with this passion that we have. It's this pursuit of meaning, this kind of deep hunger to sort of try to work it all out. not that we've done that yet, And
that's what this book and this Reality Atlas is all about, is us trying to share with you our journeys of meaning in the hopes that will be helpful for you. These analogies that we're setting up will give you food for thought to propel you on your own journey, but we don't have all the answers. This isn't a book of answers. This is more a book of questions.
Yeah. Or even a book of invitations, maybe.
Invitations,
it's like,
it has questions and answers, but it's meant to get you, it's meant to kind of be a companion on your own journey,
Yeah.
And try to help you with what we found out. And I think
interesting.
Teleology is a very important part of that.
I thought we were going to fly through this chapter. Like, I thought this video would be a 20-minute video.
I did too,
And it's interesting that we haven't even got halfway through, and we're going to have to split it into 2 videos. But it also is telling about just how central and where we're ending on meaning, I think is really, really relevant. It's appropriate. But I know we need to sign off for today, Scott. So I think what we'll do is we'll draw a line here, and we'll come back with part 2 of teleology in our next video. And we just put that in, and it's probably the best way to do it from here. What do you think?
Sounds great. So we'll pick it up with synchronicity next time.
Fantastic. Thank you, everybody. See you then.